So I want to take you on a journey through the mind of a villain. We will learn what makes them tick, how they act. We will cover everything from a villain within oneself, to obstacles of nature, to the broken, through the guided, to the pure evil, and to the units of destruction. So grab your pitchforks, put on your capes, and your thinking helmet as well, as we dwell into the minds of villains. I am the Warden, and welcome to Villain Psyche. Hello, Mindsplorers. Welcome to the Sky Dome, and if you're returning with us, then welcome back. I've talked about a very generalized villain thus far, and that one was pretty bad. And some villains work wonders by defying normal tropes and cliches. But there's a villain out there that is the most creative and works so perfectly in its own world. That villain being the Cybug, and Turbo, but we'll talk about him later. Cybugs are the NPC enemy in Hero's Duty in the story Wreck-It Ralph, a game station in a world within an arcade where characters can move about as they please during the day and night, but they follow their programming. A character who doesn't follow their programming is a rogue, or going turbo as they call it, as he, Turbo, left his game and broke the rivaling game, putting both games out of order. The characters of most games have free minds and can think with morale and consequence, but they relatively follow the rules of the arcade and follow their programming of the respective games. However, outside the games, they are just normal people and can be celebrities, like Sonic. Or if you're a villain character, you are feared. But Zangief made a beautiful statement stating just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you're a bad guy. This is the message of the story, that you can always break out of the role you were born to play as. It's all an act. However, there is one class of characters that can't follow that. The Cybugs, on the other hand, are basically just animals. Calhoun even states that they don't know that they're in a game. All they know is eat, kill, multiply. This is just how they were programmed. They are NPCs of NPCs. This is excellent world building for Hero's Duty, as they are literally level 1 enemies meant to be a pest for the player to quickly take out. This isn't at all their fault, it's just the type of role they were born to be. But unlike Ralph, they can't comprehend good or bad. They can only think off instinct and survival. I really love this about them. They are classified as normal low-level enemies in its respective game, but put in situations where it has no counter-enemies, it can thrive and is an environmental threat, basically an invasive species. We can see this in the real world with other fauna, for example pythons in the Florida Everglades. They are able to eat basically everything there, which throws the balance out of line. Yes, there are some apex predators that can contend with them, but as babies, and with a slow birth rate, it's really tough to manage. Then with predators gone, the herbivores too big for pythons like pigs are growing in numbers. An example from Yellowstone, where wolves were reduced to keep campers safe, the deer population got so out of hand that plant life was decimated. It was when wolves were reintroduced where the environment returned back to normal. The same is happening in the Everglades with its invasive species. At least humans and some predators can contend with these invasive species as long as size isn't an issue. As for the Cybugs, the characters from Hero's Duty are really the only ones able to contend with them. It's balanced. Yes, Ralph can destroy them, but he has to deal with one at a time and is quickly overwhelmed. Same goes for any other attacking characters. Now, as for their diet, they become what they eat. Hero's Duty is completely empty besides one tower. It's a wasteland. It's only if a character is knocked out the Cybug can take their weapon and use it to their advantage. You can even put Cybugs in different worlds and there still isn't much, at least in older style arcade games. Pac-Man and Fix-It Felix Jr. are also very barren, outside of a few things. The problem would be the Cybugs themselves, but in modern games like Sugar Rush, the whole game is an all-you-can-eat buffet. This is exactly what we see in the movie. They gain sugary armor from the world around them. This leads us to the problem. With an all-you-can-eat buffet, no enemies, and a very fast spawn rate, it's no wonder the whole game is taken over in mere seconds. Then we come to their design. And for arcade shooter games, they fit right in. They are living machines to where destroying them feels like an achievement. You feel like the hero. And looking at the base Cybug, it's fairly smooth in its mechanics. Once it eats candy or any other item, it gains a candy shell or armor to where weaker bullets just ricochet off of them, and then they have a hatch for landings. Now would be an appropriate time to talk about Turbo or King Candy. We know Cybugs become what they eat, but what would happen if they ate a playable character? Thank the stars we got the answer to that. The answer being, the character becomes the Cybug. Powers, weaknesses, and all. This immediately makes Turbo much more of a threat than he could ever imagine. Like he says, he's the most powerful virus in the arcade. He can indeed take over any game he wants. He even knows how to access the source code and warp the game into his liking. And what would happen if he got loose? If he had the ability to become what he ate, he would be truly unstoppable. Turbo is very aware than regular Cybugs. In the end, it's the Cybug side of him that gets the better of him, but the Turbo side knew the heat of the soda was going to kill him. So let's imagine here, if Turbo escaped and landed in Hero's duty, he is smart enough not only to evade the heroes, but he can warp the code to give him weaponry. He can then use it or eat it and have it be a part of his anatomy, which is the most creative thing for these enemies, and truly becomes a boss. And what about other games? What if he eats a power orb in Pac-Man, or a star power-up in Mario? He would truly be invincible. His intellect and abilities would be incomprehensible, and he could destroy or build games. A massive threat if you ask me. Sugar Rush is extremely lucky to have the Soda Pop Mountain, because if it didn't, it would be game over for everyone in the arcade. I'm not going to talk about Turbo's motive or impact on the characters, as I feel people have talked about him enough. I wanted to cover the what-ifs of his character. As for the Cybugs, they are a serious S-tier villain due to the creativity backing them up. Overall, I would put them at an A or B, as they are just animals with no motives. They are obstacles of nature for our heroes to overcome. And they are even forgotten about slightly in the middle of the story, so when they return, it's a shock on how bad an invasive species truly is, and why going Turbo is so bad, not only for regular people of the arcade, but animals and objects as well. That's why the security guide stops Ralph to prevent any invasive or game-breaking entities into places they shouldn't be. With that, I'll end things here. Novu, may you please grab us a souvenir for our travels? Why, thank you, Novu. Until next time, Mind Explorers.